Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the number one source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter. Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter, and welcome to Goldilocks Global Banking News. I am your host, fine folks. Let me tell you something today, ladies and gentlemen. Goldilocks is sharing how the FOREX market is set to completely change in 2026. Not sure if you're aware, but the FOREX market, although trades in the trillions daily, it's a total of almost 3 quadrillion in FOREX transactions. The FOREX market is almost a 3 quadrillion market. Think about that. Think about that. How many zeros is that? How many zeros is trillions? How many zeros is billions? How many zeros is millions? You should know that. But just think, quadrillion? Quadrillion is the FOREX market. That's an unlimited amount of money. Also, what Goldilocks is sharing, and we're going to talk about the change in FOREX, but how Vietnam is setting the stage or setting the table, whatever you want to utilize as an analogy, to release control of the Vietnamese dong exchange rate. Not total control, but they're going to take their foot off of the neck of the Vietnamese dong because they've been holding it down and suppressing it for many years. Let's jump right into what Goldilocks is sharing today. FOREX. Of course, this is where all of the currencies that many of us hold are. They're on FOREX. They are exchanged transactions daily on FOREX with the exception of the dinar. But once the dinar goes international, then that will change. When I speak of the dinar and FOREX, the dinar is not international yet, therefore, it is not an internationally recognized or exchanged currency. It is not, there is no FOREX trading of making money significantly on FOREX with the dinar because it's at a standstill of not being internationally recognized. But every other currency is. What Goldilocks is sharing is that there are new mechanisms for FOREX for 2026. Several countries and economic blocs are actively implementing or piloting new mechanisms in their FOREX markets, set to take effect and expand significantly in 2026. What are they getting ready for? What they're getting ready for, ladies and gentlemen, is that they know what's coming with the emerging markets because these countries are the emerging countries in the emerging markets. These initiatives primarily revolve around digital currencies blockchain integration, and local currency settlement systems. What are local currency settlement systems? It's the new digital banking systems within Iraq, within Vietnam, within these various countries who all have upgraded and migrated to the new digital asset-based trading system. And also this includes the enhanced, what's called cross-border payment infrastructure. What's cross-border payments? Currency exchanges. If you live in one country, or you have, not just live, if you have a currency from Iraq and you're exchanging it for the U.S., that's cross-border because those are two countries, U.S. and Iraq, that are on two different borders. If you're exchanging pesos for dinar, or pesos for rupee, or whatever it is, whatever currency, you're exchanging one currency from one country to another currency of another country, that's a cross-border transaction because those are two different currencies on two different borders. Cross-border. So what happens is they are aiming to allow and reduce reliance on the old traditional systems like the US dollar controlled SWIFT and transitioning into the new digital banking system. Key examples of blocks and countries that have band together away from the US dollar: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, UAE. What are those countries? BRICS. They're launching a unified digital currency platform for cross-border transactions in 2026. The Asian countries, China, Japan, South Korea, Thailand, Malaysia, several others, they're banding together, including what they call the expansion of emergency currency swap lines, which will include stablecoins. The European Union banding together for their currencies within the European Union. So you have the Asian bloc: China, Japan, South Korea, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam's included in there, yes, even Iraq. You have the BRICS nations: South Africa, India, Russia, Brazil, Egypt, Ethiopia. They're also banding together. Why are all these different countries partnering up in different regions of the world and getting away from the US dollar? Have you ever heard of the weakening of the dollar? Would you want to hold on to something that was worthless? Not worthless, I shouldn't say that. Losing value. Losing its value, the US dollar. Although in the US it may not appear as this as such, but globally it is. Well, some people do like to hold on to something that has no value, but I won't go into that right here. See, folks, also what Goldilocks is stating is that new valuation fundamentals are taking place. What is that? New valuation fundamentals is new numbers, new values. Think of something that is of value or something that is not of value. But just think of it as something value, meaning has a number on it, a price, a rate. January of this year, 2025, it was implemented into the new systems that new valuation adjustments would happen with all assets. They're set to take place and go into force 2026. What Goldilocks is stating is that with FOREX and these countries that are like brothers banding together, they are putting their currencies into a pool to get away from the US dollar. They're taking advantage of the growth of FOREX market around the world, which these changes aren't just technical tweaks, Goldilocks is saying. They are actually reshaping the nearly 3 quadrillion Forex market into a multipolar, efficient arena with profound ripple effects on everything in every country, down to gas and groceries. This is not no small feat. Where these countries, these regions, the Asian region, the Middle East, where they are banding together, joining forces. They're stronger together than they are apart. Vietnam. Vietnam is actually, ladies and gentlemen, in the U.S., in Washington, D.C. right now. They're scheduled to be in Washington, D.C. until the 14th of November. They're finalizing their negotiations, their trade and tariff deal with the United States. Vietnam's push to finalize their trade deal with the U.S. and its broader efforts to shift the national growth model strongly indicates a continued evolution towards what is called, ladies and gentlemen, a market-driven economy. What is a market-driven economy? It's a market where their currency is that's not driven by the central bank, or the rate is not determined by the central bank, but the market, the open global financial market, will largely in part determine the value of the rate. The market will determine everything. Many of you are under the impression, how is this possible that the market can determine the value of the rate when we've been told that all these rates have been floating around for 20 years? Have you ever heard of bait and switch? Clickbait? I better not say that. I might offend somebody. The truth often offends people. But I'm going to say it anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, the market determines the rate of a currency. That is directly from FOREX 101. Of how even the IMF explains how rates are determined. What's happening in Vietnam is they have what's called a system where it's a socialist-driven market economy where they have a level of control, but they are releasing that control. And there's evidence right now that Goldilocks is sharing that shows Vietnam is preparing themselves to release control of the Vietnamese dong, meaning, in layman's terms, they're going to take their foot off the neck of the dong and allow it to get up and begin to walk and then eventually run on its own. They can't just put out a rate and bankrupt their economy. It's like a new baby that's being born. You don't just feed it steak and potatoes out the womb. Vietnam is right now in the midst of being reborn. Why would you shove a $4 rate down their throat and they're just a newborn baby into a new digital banking system, a new economy with new reforms they just implemented, new systems, new mechanisms, new laws, new everything, and then a 4-5. Oh, I just hurt some feelings. If you have your relationships with the bankers who can exchange your currency and or also help to grow and manage it. Whatever rate you have, they can flip it to an amount that may be even greater than you expected that you were going to get in the first place. But we've covered that for over a year and a half already. We're past that now. We're at the point of how Vietnam is preparing themselves. The ongoing talks that Vietnam is having with the U.S. right now, literally right now, while you're listening to this, Vietnam is in Washington, D.C., finalizing their negotiations with the U.S. on the trade deal, which is their tariff deal, folks. They're reducing trade imbalances. There's already been a report by Jameson Greer, who is the U.S. Trade Representative, that there's very positive feedback already being reported. The United States aims to address the $123 billion trade deficit with Vietnam, meaning the loss in profit they had with Vietnam last year and the previous years before. They're going to sign deals with the Agriculture Committee, with the agricultural sector in the U.S. That's our farmers, where Vietnam will open totally and completely Vietnam to the majority, if not all, of the farmers in the United States. That's in writing. They already signed several deals with several states. If I recall, Kansas, Iowa, and Maryland state agriculture earlier this year. Now they're opening it up, opening Vietnam to majority of all of the farmers in agriculture in the United States to have full market access to Vietnam. This is a momentous occasion, this negotiations, folks, that Vietnam is having right now in the U.S. This is where the rubber meets the road with everything for their currency and their economy moving forward. Vietnam will witness, Goldilocks is stating, a transition into a market-driven economy in 2026, which is a currency rate that will be determined by the market. No coincidence that FTSE Russell upgraded Vietnam on October the 7th, their stock market on October the 7th, to an emerging market economy. They met the requirements. So what Goldilocks is stating is that the developments that Vietnam is showing now affirm and confirm Vietnam's market-driven trajectory, with exchange rates increasingly shaped by global trade and domestic reforms, meaning their laws and regulations, rather than unilateral state control, meaning the central bank controlling the rate. The rate will be determined by the global trade market and their reforms that have implemented and fueled them. This positions Vietnam, Goldilocks is stating, as a resilient emerging market, balancing their socialist roots with capitalist efficiencies, meaning whereby they will allow the profit and the money of the market to be in full force to determine the value of the Vietnamese dong, but not to where the market will just explode and the rate will explode up. Vietnam still has to have a level of control of the rate so that it doesn't move up too fast, because they have to grow along with the rate so that the rate doesn't destroy their economy. See, the selfish part of many people that may have the dong will say, well, why don't they just let the rate go up as high as they can and feed their people? Folks, that's not how this works. That's how the ego works within yourselves. That's how hope works within yourself. That is not how reality works in finance. That's like you living in a home. Let's say it's like if you're renting or even owning your home. Let's say if you're renting and the landlord says to you, oh, I'm going to raise your rent each month by $500 because of inflation. Now, inflation is supposed to be 2 to 3% increase annually. But he says he's going to raise it $500 a month. You'll say, what you mean $500 a month? I can't afford that. That's too fast to raise my, that's too much, too fast to raise my rent. And the landlord says, well, pay it or get out. You'll be trying to find a way to, where you going to go and get out. Because if you were to raise the rent so fast, you wouldn't be able to afford it. It'll destroy your whole life. You couldn't afford nothing. Same thing with Vietnam. If they just increase the rate quickly, they will price themselves out of the economy. It's like, again, if your landlord increased your rent by so much, you might have to get 2 or 3 jobs. Your spouse, 2 or 3 jobs. You need a raise. It's give and take in everything with finances, folks. You're hearing all these rates being thrown out all over dinar land to clickbait you in. None of it makes any sense. No mechanisms and no indicators and no reality. But the ego says it must be right. If Vietnam or any country just arbitrarily revalue their currency to some big old number, where else they going to get? How are they going to make up for all of that? They would price themselves out of an economy. It takes time to grow, to bring in profit from other areas. Meaning, profit from more exports, imports, foreign investors coming in. It's the same thing. As if your rent or your mortgage was to just increase by such a large amount overnight. You'll be pricing, they'll be your mortgage lender or your landlord will be pricing you literally out of a home. You couldn't afford it. Same thing, folks. These BS rates thrown all over the Narland just to make you click, click, bait, bait, boom. Just think about it. Makes no sense. But Vietnam is prepared realistically to let the dong move. If you have a relationship with a licensed professional that is more than willing, capable, able to help you with your exchange and grow your wealth. You'll be in the best position to not be evicted. You don't want to get evicted from your life or where you're from, where you're at, because of what you believed, what was sold to you in Guru Fufu land. We love you, beautiful folks. Ciao, ciao. Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter.